Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us on an underground version of Morning Brews with Big Grove Brewery. I'm Andy Joynt, the head brewer at Big Grove, and I've got a couple of Dougs with me here today, Doug Goettsch and Doug Alberhasky. Doug, why don't you tell us what you do with Big Grove?
I am the co-founder along with Matt Swift and Faye Swift. We started this all up in Solon back in 2013.
Very nice. And Doug, why don't you tell us what you don't do? Because you seem to be in a lot of things.
A little bit of everything. So Doug Alberhasky, I'm the owner of John's Grocery. Third generation, been going in our family for 72 years now, and also do a little bit with Boy Scouts, Optimist Club, Junior Achievement, baseball, and a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
And you sell a lot of Big Grove beer.
We do sell on occasion a can or two.
You were one of the first ones to start selling the beer here in Iowa City for
Yep.
us too, so we've had a long relationship with you.
Oh yeah, it's been my pleasure, and I'm so glad that you guys could join us down here at the Bier case today. So.
Yeah, and we kind of wanted to connect a few things here. We got the history of Iowa City brewing here in the caves, and we've got a new release beer from Big Grove that's kind of tied into that a little bit. So
this you guys did for our 24.5 anniversary of the Iowa City Brew Fest. It's supposed to be the 25th anniversary, but we couldn't let that go on 2020. So, but you guys made this special beer for us, and we really wanted to thank you for that because it was one of the best resounding successes of the Northside Oktoberfest this year. So thank you for doing that.
Well, we applaud you for managing to pull off a virtual beer festival.
Well, a brew fest in a box, that's what it's all about.
Exactly. I heard from quite a few of my friends that live around the store here too, that they were pretty happy to get that. It was kind of a much needed break from all the madness that 2020 has brought on.
It really was, and the fact that we could do something that benefited the entire neighborhood was just absolutely fantastic. We did two $15 gift certificates, we had a dozen beers, a couple of glasses, bottle of wine, frozen poly-ice pizza, and a bunch of other knickknacks and stuff, so it really made a pretty amazing little box for everybody. So.
Well, as the mole crawls, we're not that far from poly-ice pizza.
Doug, you
really.
want
The history
to
of the
tell
beer
everyone
kit.
where we're actually at right now?
Yeah, so this is the lagering cellar of the Hudson Geiger Graf Union Brewing Company. So right now we're about 35 feet below ground. This is, you guys are, one of the few and the proud to be able to come down into the beer caves. We don't do this very often. Mark Moen owns the brewery, or the building and stuff, and so he was gracious enough to let us down here today. Marlon Ingalls, the former state archaeologist, is kind of our guide, and he kind of knows this place inside and out, but we're in history right now. This brewery dates back to 1856. Simeon Hotz and Anton Geiger were the original owners. Simeon's daughter ended up marrying the brewmaster Conrad Graf, and that's where the Graf Brewing Company came into effect. And this whole neighborhood really plays very predominantly in the history of beer in the Iowa City area. And at one point there were three very large production breweries right in the neighborhood. You had the Englert City Brewing Company, the J.P. Dostal Great Midwestern Iowa Brewing Company, and then the Union Brewery here. Across the street where Goosetown was originally the Union Public House. And I'm sure Rob will show some pictures of the actual tunnel that actually goes underneath the Market Street from this building to the Goosetown building, and that's how they get the beer over there. So,
should we crack one? We're below ground, but it's kind of warm and really humid down here. So history in the making?
Oh yes, this is the first time that we have ever actually had beer down in the beer caves.
Well, it seems like an appropriate beer. It's the Northside Helles. So it's a German-style Helles that we brewed in very traditional German fashion, and it would probably be pretty similar to what they were doing in a brewery like this back in that time.
Definitely.
Oh man, that smells good. That smells like beer. And you can imagine what it smelled like down here.
Yeah.
Roast.
Prost.
Roast.
So good, so crisp, so clean.
Yeah, tastes even better down here.
It really does. It really does.
I think they would have been proud of this.
Yeah.
I think they would have been happy with the results of these.
But the strange thing is, back in the day, you wouldn't have gotten in cans, you would have gotten it in a bucket. Because they would have sent you home with a bucket of beer.
Yeah, and so jumping from modern brewing to coming down here and kind of trying to figure out how they were doing everything, it was just such a different time. I mean, they didn't have refrigeration, hence the caves.
Yep.
I mean, they didn't have a lot of electrical pumps or anything to move liquid around, so they were kind of,
All
breweries were
vertical.
built gravity, so as you move through the process, the beer came down the floor and down the floor.
I'm standing, and you said this was a trough where they
It
floated the barrels,
floated
right?
the barrels, yep.
So that's why Andy and I are approximately the same height right now. So. Andy did not grow since the last one. Gosh,
This is so good. You did
Yeah.
an excellent job.
I just love this is the first time that I've been down here. I was really excited to come down. I've missed a couple opportunities to be down here. You've been really gracious with your access to it. For Andy and Matt have been down here a couple of times, so I was excited to get down here. And we were talking about the history of brewing in Iowa City is pretty long and deep, and I don't think a lot of people know it because those breweries closed when?
Well, they would have closed 3 years before national prohibition in 1916, because Iowa finally enacted prohibition in the state before the federal one went into effect. So,
that's over 100 years ago, and I think a lot of people have forgotten what's here. I had always heard about the beer caves, so it was nice to be in here. And the idea that, we're here 104 years after they'd closed and talking about beer and looking at the history of beer in Iowa City. I had said a couple of days ago, I was talking to my friends when we were talking about expansion and everything, and I said my hope is that we can kind of leave a legacy behind. So who knows, maybe in 100 years they're talking about, big growth beer.
Yep.
I can't think of any other reason they'd be talking about me, so.
Maybe because you're still down here, because we can't get you back down.
I don't know what the weight limit on that ladder is, but I was real close to the top of it, I think.
yeah. Luckily, we replaced the ladder of death with the new ladder. So,
It's quite the adventure to get down here. There's a ladder, and it's a long ladder to get down, and then ducking under several very small door frames. And
Well, I think you got my attention when you started asking me to sign the waivers. That's been the most confined space in Iowa City, and that's, I'm not a small fella to be kind of ducking down through caves, so.
Yeah.
But it's a great place, man. I'm amazed. I know looking at the cellars and everything, we were talking about it, the little hole back there where you can kind of see we tucked some beer. They said is where they held the lamps, whale oil lamps and candles.
Yep.
We've got incandescent lights, and Rob's got his big LED light on here. I can't imagine what it'd be like working down here with just a couple of candles. But you said they did it because they drank for free?
They drank for free, and this was one of the most stable jobs in the 1850s, 1860s in Iowa City. And when you look at how many people were involved with the brewing process, I figured at that time about 1/5 of the workforce of Iowa City was involved in one way, shape, or form with the brewing.
they moved some volume too, as I recall. I mean, each
really
brewery
did.
in town's making, I want to say, 20,000 barrels at their house.
Beer is life, and especially back then, where you didn't know if the water you were going to be drinking was going to make you sick or not. So,
Sure.
beer is cooked water, and it's
Always clean.
It is always clean and always good for you. So.
For a point of reference, we're going to close out probably around
Will be
15,000
15,000
barrels. So that's pretty impressive considering the population growth and what's going on.
I think, it was a reflection of the time where everyone in Iowa City surely drank the beer from those breweries. You didn't, you weren't getting beer from Wisconsin or anywhere else.
No, it was all local. I think it was 1865. There were 19 pubs for 4,000 people in Iowa City. So you call that stumbling distance. Everybody had
Iowa City's got a long, deep history of stumbling distance.
Well, yeah, it's definitely fun as a brewer. I studied the Iowa City brewing history way back. I was very curious what happened here back in the day, and to learn about these breweries, and then kind of get to be down in the space is really fun. But then to get to brew a beer that's honestly kind of in honor of that and brewed in the same traditions that those guys were brewing in is very cool.
It is, and you just absolutely nailed this one.
So touch on that real quick, Andrew. Why lager below ground and why lager?
Right, so not having the refrigeration, they didn't have the ability to cool the tanks during fermentation, which is very critical, especially with your lager beer. And so in order for to kind of make the best lager, you needed cold storage space all year round. And so the only way to do that around here was to get it underground. where I'm guessing these usually hold
56.
50, 55, yeah.
Yeah.
So you've got great lager temperatures, so you kind of work it through the brew process and then get it down here and just let the lager do its thing in cold condition for a while, and then when it's ready to go, I'm sure they just had to float it down the street, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Pour it into the bucket.
Yep. Put it all in the bucket.
Yeah, we've got the Iowa City lager hanging out back there too, another version of a lager that we do as well. So it's definitely different now. We lager them inside our large cooler at the tap room. They're horizontal, 40 barrel?
30 barrel
30
lager
barrel.
vessels, yeah. So I mean, we kind of, we've got the advantages of modern technology and refrigeration and all that, but we do still kind of honor the time part of the process where we take a very long time with our lagers, and they're
Which is-
usually
How many days?
Yeah.
well, they're usually 8 weeks.
8 weeks. Wow.
Yeah.
So it's 2 weeks of what we would call primary fermentation,
Mhm.
and then another 6 weeks where they're just resting cold in 35, 36 degree temperatures.
Well, we really appreciate the opportunity. One more little cheers, please.
Thank you.
Cheers, gentlemen.
It's
Keep up the good work.
really cool to come down here and look at a slice of history in Iowa City, and hopefully Big Grove contributes to it and honors it with our Northside Helles and Iowa City Lager. So,
Excellent.
Keep it going, guys.
Cheers.
Thanks, guys. Cheers.
Cheers.